The scapula or the shoulder blades are arguably the most influential part or important part of upper body movement. Movement of the scapula should enhance your upper body movement, but lack of movement in the scapula usually prohibits movement in the upper body. So how exactly does the scapula move, and how can we understand that movement and then allow that to go into our upper body movements like press, rowing, pull-ups, lateral raises, any upper body or even rotational movements like a golf swing or a tennis serve. So in this video, I'm going to be breaking down controlled articular rotations of the scapula so that we understand how to take those shoulder blades through all of their articulations. And then from there, hopefully you will start to see improvements in your upper body movements right away. The scapula, since they're behind our body, are not visible when we are moving without looking in a mirror or at a video of ourselves. So they're hard to feel. And if most of our life is spent at a desk or a computer or driving, then we are not usually in our everyday lives moving the scapula through their full ranges of motion. The rotator cuff, front and back, directly connects to the scapula and wraps as a cuff around the shoulder. So we can see how movement of the scapula and control over that movement really affects shoulder movement as well. So let's break this down and start to understand some articulations of the scapula or shoulder blades. We'll be using something like a stick. You can also use a dowel or a broomstick. We'll be using an external load like a kettlebell or a dumbbell. You want it to be light-ish. And we'll be using something light that is like a yoga block that we can squeeze that's almost shoulder width apart at the very end. All right, so let's get started. We'll start with the stick. It's gonna go behind you. So we're gonna hold that stick with the palms facing back about shoulder width apart. So the wrists will be kind of just below the shoulders here. And first we're gonna work retraction. Retraction of the scapula is one of the most difficult articulations to find. So retraction of the scapula are when the scapula squeeze in towards the spine. Now don't confuse this with arching of the spine. So we want the shoulder blades to be able to glide along the back without manipulating the spine or without the spine needing to move out of the way to make that happen. So if it helps to go up against a wall or a squat rack so that you're sure that as you're retracting, you're not popping that chest out, go ahead and use a modification like that. So again, palms facing back. What I want you to do is pull the stick apart between those two hands. So the elbows are going to remain straight for all of these variations. We're going to pull the stick apart, and that is going to automatically retract those scapula. And if you can't feel that, then I want you to try to think about squeezing those shoulder blades together towards the spine or pulling those shoulders back and together. That's your retraction. Now you can release that tension. Let's try that 2 more times. Grab onto that stick. You're pulling that stick apart between the 2 hands. So we're pulling that apart, and that is going to squeeze those shoulder blades together. Find that tension there, and then release. And then we're going to do that 1 more time. So we're using this tactile feedback from the stick to help find movement in those shoulder blades, and release. So now let's add in another movement. So we're going right away into our CARs, or controlled articulations, going through all of the articulations. So the next one from retraction is going to be elevation. Elevation of the scapula is when the shoulder blades rise up, and it usually also shrugs the shoulders. We do elevation when we do any overhead movement automatically, and obviously when we're doing shoulder shrugs, right? So let's really break down and figure out the deepest range of motion that we have in that elevation. So we're pulling that stick apart. I want you to keep pulling the stick apart as we slide the stick up away from the floor. That's gonna shrug the shoulders up towards the ears. Keep pulling that stick apart and then release the tension. Let's do that again. Pull the stick, that's gonna retract. Now keep pulling as we shrug the shoulders up. Keep that tension there and release. Notice how when I'm shrugging, I'm not jetting that chin out forward. I want to keep the chin retracted in as I pull apart and shrug and release. So that's our retraction and elevation. So now we're going to add in protraction, which is the opposite of retraction. Protraction is when the scapula slide away from the spine, and depending on where the arm is in space, they can also scooch out around the sides of the back just slightly. So they're going out away from the spine and slightly out. So from this position, we're going to start again with that retraction, pulling the stick apart. We're going to go up into the elevation. Now from here, I want you to push the stick together, which is going to protract those shoulders. Now, as you do that, you might be able to get a little bit more shrug in the shoulders. And if you do, go ahead and let that happen because we're still in that elevation. We're just protracting the scapula. And then release that tension. Let's do that again. Pull the stick apart to retract. Keep pulling as we elevate. Now let's protract, push that stick together, which is going to pull those shoulder blades away from the spine. Try not to do the reverse of the retraction with the spine, which is to round that spine here, right? And try not to let the shoulders rotate too much either, right? So we're just pushing that stick in, allowing that protraction to happen without too much rotation or roundness in the spine, and release that tension. Okay, let's go again. Pull that stick apart. Keep those elbows straight as we shrug up. That's that elevation. Then push the stick together, which is going to protract those shoulder blades, and release. Let's do that one more time. Pull. Keep pulling as we elevate. Now push and release. So now the last articulation is the opposite of the elevation, which is the depression. So the depression is exactly the opposite. Usually when you depress your scapula, your shoulder blades will slide down the back towards your back pocket, and the shoulders will usually shrug away from the ears. So that's your scapular depression. For this movement, we are going to keep pressing that stick in together as we depress. So keep that protraction as we slide those shoulders and that stick down. So let's go through the whole thing. So we're going to focus on that depression, but we're going to start from the beginning. We're going to pull the shoulder blades together in that retraction, pulling the stick apart. Keep pulling the stick as we slide the stick away from the floor and the shoulders up to the ears. We're going to push on the stick as we protract, keeping the shoulders up, and then keep pushing on the stick as we depress, reaching that stick down towards the floor. Let's do that again. So now we'll pull the stick apart, keeping those shoulders away from the ears, and then elevate, keep pulling the stick apart. Now protract, push that stick in together, and depress. Let's go one more time in this direction. Pull the stick apart, retract. Lift up, keep that stick pulling. Protract, push, and depress down. Keep pushing that stick together. All right. And so there you have it. That is your scapular car. We're going to try that in the opposite direction, and then we're going to try that in different variations so that you can really feel those scapula moving on the back. So now let's reverse it. So the stick is down by your side. We're reaching the stick down towards the floor, that depression, and we're going to start by pushing the stick together. So we're protracting from there. Then we're going to keep pushing the stick as we slide the shoulders and the stick away from the floor. Now you're going to keep the shoulders shrugging, but pull the stick apart. That's that retraction of the scapula. And then keep pulling apart as we reach back down to the floor. Let's do that one 2 more times. Again, keep those elbows nice and straight. Push the stick together. That's that protraction. Keep pushing as we lift up into elevation. Now pull the stick apart as we retract. Slide that stick down. One more time. Protract. Push that stick in together. Elevate, shrugging up. Keep pushing that stick. Retract at the top. Squeeze, pulling that stick apart. And depress, sliding that stick down. And release. So that right there might take some time to get used to. But let's try the same exact movement if we put that stick down to the side. So now we're not going to have that external cue and feedback. We're going to try to just move the scapula without that intention or that external cue. So hands are going to be glued to your side. So even when we protract and retract, you want to try not to reach those arms with that protract and retract. We're going to try to keep those hands glued to the thighs as we go through this. We'll do the same exact pattern of movement of the scapula. So hands are by your side, shoulders are starting down. We're gonna start by retracting, so squeezing those shoulder blades together. Find that retraction, that position. Now keep that retraction as we slide the shoulders up towards the ears, that elevation. And then let's protract, sliding the shoulder blades away from the spine without pulling those hands in front or rounding the upper back, and pull down, depression. Again, retract one more, elevate, protract, depress. Now let's reverse it. So now we'll protract first, elevate, retract, depress. One more, protract, elevate. Sometimes it helps to think about drawing circles with the shoulders and depress. So sometimes, especially with this variation, you can think a little bit about drawing circles with the shoulders. Just keep those hands nice and glued to your side, and that's going to help you feel that scapular movement as well. So what if we add some external load to this? This is similar to doing a shoulder shrug, but we're going to go through that retraction and protraction as well. So you can grab your lightweight, either kettlebell or dumbbell. You can do this 1 or 2 sides at a time. I'm going to do 1. Right? And we're going to do 2 reps in each direction just like last time. So we're going to start with that depression. So now it's really easy to feel the depression. I mean, the weight wants to take your shoulder and your shoulder blade down with it. So now comes the hard part where we're going to retract and then elevate, shrug, and then protract. So now that we have the hang of it, we're really trying to smooth out this movement. One more time in that same direction. Protract and depress. Now let's reverse it. So I'm going to protract, pulling the shoulder blade away from the ear, shrug. Now here's when I really feel these rhomboids here in between the shoulder blades, squeezing that shoulder blade across and down. And we'll go one more, protract. Same as before, I'm trying not to let that weight swing my arm around. I'm trying to really isolate and initiate that movement from the scapula and down. Now let's switch sides. So I've got the weight in my left arm, depressing that scapula. I'm going to start with that retraction, elevation, protraction, depression, retract, elevate, protract, depress. Now let's reverse it. Protract, elevate, retract, and depress. One more time, protract, elevate, retract, and depress, and rest. So not only is that a progression in terms of holding an external load, just going one side at a time is difficult so that we're not moving both sides at the same time. One side is stabilizing while the other side moves. So once again, if any of that was really confusing, go back to that first progression of pulling and pushing that stick behind you. That's really going to help feel those scapula, and eventually you will be able to articulate them a little bit better. One more challenge for you. The first part of this challenge is back to your stick. We're going to change the orientation of the arms. So we can do our scapula cars with the arms out in front of us. We can do them with the arms out to the side on the frontal plane, right? So with this one, the protraction looks more like wings spreading out instead of pulling forward and out. And we could do them with the arms overhead as well, right? But we're gonna do, this is similar to what you're gonna need for a bench press or a push-up. This one is easily applicable. So we're gonna go with our arms straight out in front of us at shoulder width apart, and we're gonna use those same cues of pulling that stick apart to retract, pushing that stick together to protract. And now with this one, as we retract and protract, the stick is gonna go towards you as you retract and pull, and away from you as you protract and push, right? So we're gonna go through the same motion, retract, elevate, protract, depress, and then reverse it, protract, elevate, retract, depress. But now the stick is gonna make circles in this orientation, right? So arms out in front, we're gonna try to keep a corkscrew in the upper arms the entire time. So that's gonna prevent rotation from taking over the retraction and protraction. rotation of the shoulder, I should say. So arms out in front, we're gonna pull the stick apart to retract. We're gonna keep that retraction as we elevate. We're gonna keep the elevation as we protract. Push that stick together without letting that internal rotation happen, and then depress, stick goes down. Retract, pull, elevate, shrug, protract, push, depress, down. One more, retract, pull, elevate, protract, push, depress, and then let's reverse it. Elevate, retract, pull, depress, keep pulling, protract, push. Elevate, retract, push, pull, depress, pull, protract, push. One more time, elevate, keep pushing, retract, pull, depress, keep pulling, and protract, push, and rest. One more part to this challenge. Now we're gonna do, instead of pushing and pulling on the stick, we're going to just squeeze a yoga block. So we're gonna do the same scapular movements, but now we are just squeezing in, and the palms are gonna face in towards each other as well. So we're gonna start here, yoga block out in front, just like we had with the stick, but now we're pushing in on that yoga block. Let's start with that depression, retract, elevate, protract, depress, retract, elevate, protract. Now let's reverse it. Elevate, retract, depress, protract, and one more. Elevate, retract, depress, protract, and rest. This is a really great warm-up for push-ups or bench press. Since we are squeezing that block in, we're using those pecs and the front delts to really squeeze as we're moving the scapula through those articulations. And that's pretty much it. That's your scapular cars. If you have any questions about these movements, drop them in the comments below. If you found this helpful, please share, like, and subscribe. Thanks so much, and I will see you next time.